Hello and welcome to the second episode of Art with Michael. Today I'm going to be continuing with the Grace Kelly picture, but I'm going to be dealing with the hair today. So before I start, I thought I'd show a few thoughts on how I'll approach it. First of all, I was saying in the last video that you should draw what you see, not what you think you see. But it is worth understanding what you're seeing. Sometimes you can be, you're not a printer. You are trying to understand the image before you as well. So I'm just going to consider a piece of hair like a flat piece of paper, and if it's curling, it will twist. Now, if we've got light coming from this direction, sitting by an outside window, and we twist it, we can start to see that it gives that impression of curling hair. There's clear shadow parts. So for example, it's light there where the light's above it, and then it goes shadowy, and then this part here is underneath. So if I imagine this as hair, I can sketch a piece of hair curling, and as it twists around, we find other parts coming in from the back, and these parts disappearing while the other parts come from the front, and these bits will be more in shadow. And we can look at a picture of someone's actual hair, and you can see very clearly these sorts of effects. So if we look at this section, the section of hair curls, but here, while there's no solid line, you can see that the line continues past where the colour changes gradually inside it. So you're getting, much like with this sheet of paper, a curled effect. And then colours inside can be darker there, very light here where the light's above it, quite dark there, so we can put more of our lines there and fewer in the gap in the middle, and we start to get some sort of hair effect. Now, doing this with colour, I'm just going to use a couple of colours to give an example. First of all, we'll pick a quite dark one, a lighter and mid-tone. We can easily just have light lines for hair. Maybe we want some of these sharp, and we might want to continue them down to the curve and curl it through and have the other parts come around the outside. And then with a darker colour, we can maybe have similar tones there, and obviously the choice of colour is going to be a significant factor in making this look as good as you possibly can make it. And then sometimes the abrupt ending of a line indicates the negative, called the negative space of what's behind it. So just the fact that the line stops here will indicate that there's something on the other side. And then up at the top, we might want to give some sort of indication of the shadow underneath. Maybe want to come in with a much darker colour, maybe even a black if we want. And you can start to see some sort of impression of the hair that exists. Could do with sharpening the pencil before this, but this is part of the effect that you will see appearing in the Grace Kelly picture I'm about to move on to. And if we build up a bunch of pieces like this that match the image we're copying from, we should get a nice effect. Just remember to try and stick to the same colour set, because if you do lose track of which colours you're using, sometimes you can really make one piece stand out. So let's have another look at a time lapse. As you can see, Much like the example I showed before, I'm sketching out the general shapes that make up the appearance of the hair. Some of those are similar to the one I showed, some of them are more complicated. The colour pencils I use are bronze, raw CNF for some of the lighter parts, raw umber, and then burnt umber for the darker parts. Also burnt carmine, which has a hint of red, which is quite dark colour. That's quite nice. As I fill in, you'll start to see that some of these sections have those light parts showing on the bits that are much more towards the camera, for example, and then they move towards darker tones as you move down. Also, as I'm going through this, as I put on the colour, I'm not putting on excessive colour at first, because the more colour you place on, you do get into a position where it's hard to then take colour out. You can of course use an eraser or a rubber, but it's probably best not to. It tends to be a bit rough on your drawing. As you can see, I'm still building up some of the colour. I'm returning to the face on numerous occasions, because once you put in a chunk of colour, it does tend to change how you view the bit that's next to it. So I'll return at many points to the hair to add colour into it. I'll return to the face to add colour into that. Sorry, bit of thunder in the background. And again, you'll see examples of what I was talking about before appearing on the screen. Things like colour ending suddenly to create that impression of the hair curling around. And as we move to this point, I move away from the hair, start focusing more on getting some deeper shadows onto the face. Not, like I said last time, not incredibly deep. I'm not particularly accustomed to getting very intense colours. I was actually using some purple for some of those shadows. It's actually the colour of the pencil is magenta, but it certainly looks more purple when used. So as you can see, there are some of the examples I discussed before the time lapse are visible. You can see here where the hair stops at this point. There's no line drawn across to indicate that the curl goes here, but just the fact that all that hairlines coming down stop indicates that this is one of the curls. So same thing happens up here at the top. Hairs go up and then abruptly stop, and then in this section where it's largely in light, there are very few lines, very few marks from the pencils. I said before, I'm not an expert, I'm on a learning journey as well, but I think the effect is okay. I think it's pretty good. Hopefully it will get better, and I will go through and try and improve touches here and there as I go. And the next video should be the final video, where I complete the lower half of the image, which is mostly just a shoulder and a bit of a dress. So should be a reasonably straightforward job. Thank you for watching. If you found any of this useful, please like and subscribe. What harm could it do?